Drum yoga. Vajra yogini drum yoga. Maybe too much. Drum yoga, dramara bears. Sometimes the day is too much to walk or this dharma's practice little bit center
Worry?
center
Like worry?
worry
Worry.
down drum yoga down trop nilam tangari.
Oh, so if you're like kind of worried about it, or if you're whatever you're worried about or kind of preoccupied with, then you dream about it. Sometimes. Dinichi dorje na jormagi korla milan tang songe.
Nilam tang maso
She didn't have dreams last night.
center tiamdu
She's not worried about anything.
good sleep.
So she sleeps well. Actually, Drupon gets up throughout the night, so she doesn't sleep through the whole night. She kind of like gets up and meditates for a time, and then sleeps, and then meditates, and then sleeps. I know because we've been in the same place. So, but I wanted to also just like let people know. So Frank wanted to be here today, but Gretchen had to go. She's had a lot of health complications lately, and so she ended up having to go to the emergency room. Nothing serious, but she had to have some tests done, and then it ended up she had to stay overnight, and so now Frank was not able to come because he's gonna pick her up, and they have to deal with that. So just he wanted me to let people know. Okay, so we'll do opening prayers beginning on page 5. With all enemies who hate me, hinderers who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free suffering, and quickly attain precious unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment. With all enemies who hate me, hinderers who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment. With all enemies who hate me, hinderers who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment. Ascend, I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue until Buddhahood. I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue until death. I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue from today until tomorrow at this time. All sentient beings equal to the ends of space take refuge in the nature of all the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities those gone in the 10 directions, and 3 times the wellspring of the 84,000 heaps of Dharma, the sovereign of all the noble Sanghas, the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Yidams Mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma protectors and guardians with the wisdom high. We take refuge in the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the assembly of the deities of the Yidams Mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma protectors and guardians with the wisdom high. We take refuge in the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Yidams Mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma protectors and guardians with the wisdom high. Till I reach the heart of awakening, I take refuge in the Buddhas all, in the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too I take refuge, just as all Sugatas of the past brought to the mind of awakening, and in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell, just so for the benefit of beings I to bring to birth awakened mind, and in each and every training thus step by step I'll train myself like so, till I reach the heart of awakening. I take refuge in the Buddhas all, in the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too I take refuge, just as all Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind of awakening, and in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell, just so for the benefit of beings I to bring to birth awakened mind, and in each and every training thus step by step I'll train myself like so, till I reach the heart of awakening. I take refuge in the Buddhas all, in the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too I take refuge, just as all Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind of awakening, and in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell, just so for the benefit of beings I to bring to birth awakened mind, and in each and every training thus step by step I train myself like so. In the Buddha, Dharma and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening, by the merit of my deeds like generosity. May I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit, in the Buddha, Dharma and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening, awakening by the merit of my deeds like generosity. May I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit in the Buddha Dharma and the assembly excellent. I take refuge till I come to full awakening by the merit of my deeds like generosity. May I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity free of attachment and aversion to near and far. By prostrating, offering, and confessing thus, by rejoicing, urging, supplicating to any little virtue that I have amassed, all I dedicate for full awakening. This ground daubed with fragrant water and with flowers strewn is adorned by Meru, four lands, and by sun and moon. Seeing this to be a Buddha field, I offer it. May all beings experience this utterly pure land. Om Guru Ratna Mandala Puja Mega Samudra Saparana Samaye Ahong. As befits the different wishes of sentient beings and their intellects, turn the Dharma wheel of vehicles, great and small and common, thus we pray.
Kanji ni tadong draw mare ma
So then we will pick up with the instructions of the practice, where we left off yesterday. So she thinks maybe did we leave off at page 6? Or 7?
7.
7. It is.
And then the Kazan shooting body that don't have Jang Kang Shedena. Chosmeto the incident Yamseliya Langoso. Koala koalang ni jomina teni je kamsong koa na tayate kale kapori tende koala tambo ngenjong jia ka chide ani lodo namba jeda koni shibana jikatsan shibana lodo namba jeda ani jannim ji sanjo sem ani tambo gomte teni ranga dawo den dona ja pa yele jo mayun ja tedejin teni jannim ji jamba dan ninje gomte ka tedejin drogo yore
Pa yon?
pa ye mayun ta ye so yun so cheba yomare
That's
ni dawo den dona ja tedejin tang oso zo de dawo de la teni oso ka jala dang ni na cha de rin do de teni tedejin cha dang ni ke teni oso ko wan cham do yore den du teni ti toma tedejin nyamne chia dang go teni zong do yore.
So yesterday, where we were discussing a lot about suffering, the suffering of the different realms, and in some ways it's kind of unpleasant to have to to reflect so much on that, but it's also really necessary, because in order to really have genuine renunciation, we have to understand fully the suffering of the three realms of cyclic existence, and we have to long to get free. We have to be determined that there's no real happiness to be found here. And so that foundation of renunciation is so important to all of our Dharma practice, which is why we have to, in the beginning, really reflect well on the four thoughts that turn the mind. And then, having contemplated for a time the four thoughts that turn the mind, which is really like the first set of preliminary practices, on the progressive stages, or in the context of the progressive stages of the path. So once we've gone through those meditations, those reflections on the four thoughts, then we also then we go for refuge. We practice refuge together with a mind, the kind of highest level of refuge, or Mahayana refuge, which is also motivated by love, compassion, and bodhicitta. And so we do so, visualizing the field of accumulation, or the refuge tree, in the space in front of us. Our Father is to our right, our Mother is to our left, all sentient beings, or all our enemies are in front of us, and all sentient beings are behind us, and together, our Mother, our Father, our enemies, together with all sentient beings, we're prostrating together. We visualize that we're prostrating together and going for refuge together. So together with this mind of refuge, there's also this cultivation of equanimity, because we're doing it with all sentient beings, including all of our enemies, which is also overcoming that mind of attachment and aversion based on thoughts of closeness and distance. We're attached to those that we feel closeness with. We have aversion to those that we feel some animosity or distance towards. And so it is that mind of attachment and aversion which is really, kind of responsible for our wandering and continues, to fuel our wandering and cyclic existence, with the root of self-grasping being the cause.
And then koatela karesna ni jongdo machena kamsong koatela kashe sangar kowa sinidela kamsong koatela takpada timba jayo mare ani kapjemol derina shira kapjela tinje medena detama yan panji yan chonje dina shiris den kamsong koane tarsoena ani ngoza tinde dewalan jerwada tang jayo mare peti boris den de chide ngoza kata tarbada tamje chimbo panlo toya chide ani dambo denje chin ta kowala kanje yume nyamneche ani de lege jimba ten on tende chia tende res ani tam mer da kazan nyawaya da tundos simba menyang etisa shu simba mela yang kale mampo che yore kan yore sina yang kashela jewa ka dongar ma jewa ka de ngoso ta chongchong de jere jewa ka sa ngoso ha ko mare kanga dongar ngoso sama timba je jar 어디 가도 다 가르스나 제발 동할 요래 perna 모서 벤로 야야나 아메트로 고라 유데 차오단 잠보 요래 마철로 동데 되는 모서 철망나 야나시 배 돌로드서 배 가래서 섭섭 찬도도 배 강아 요래시 아메트로 gon 벤 잠보라 하장 그 차오 많이 하장 그 잠모 많이 봐 샤 토든 잠보도 당고서 디 철망을 나자 디 From the day that dot in the Kambajina Kaledo, Dina hit up with Chunchon, Cholor Sand, Tranga Donga, Sauka Donga, Tinit, Indigen, and Kangama Poche Yores, Chiganam Cheva Donga, Tene, Melan Nan, Nava Donga Yore, and it gave a Donga Yore, gave a Donga de Tene, Kansina, dogs and dog matter, and they make a mata, Ya Langos and a long matter. Dongal Mapoche Yores.
So it is really important again to have a sense of renunciation for samsara, really understanding that there's no true and lasting happiness to be found anywhere. So when we really understand the nature of the suffering of samsara, it is, as they say, that there's not any true happiness, not even as much as can be found sort of balancing on the tip of a needle. And so then when we really get that, we feel really determined to get free. We feel really determined to seek liberation because there's this opportunity. And then that apart from liberation, apart from the unchanging fulfillment and well-being of enlightenment, that there's no real happiness to be found. So knowing that, it's really, this is our chance, our opportunity to reach the state of liberation, and this comes from really knowing, how much suffering there is in samsara, and that it's just pointless to continue cycling endlessly in this constant round of death and rebirth without ever really finding any true and lasting happiness. And so that's what this, through doing these practices of offering the body, increasing generosity, and so forth, that's what our objective is, is the liberation and awakening of ourselves and all beings. And so we went through the different types of suffering in the hell realms, that of hungry ghosts, and now we're on the human realm, where we have the suffering of birth, old age, illness, and death, for one. And we were talking a bit about the suffering of birth, and that it's really, so it's really important to be aware of, even just the birth process itself, how much suffering there is in that. And then once there's birth, an infant is so sensitive and so easily uncomfortable, right? They were like in this protective womb of the mother, while there's also discomfort and suffering there. Then once they're born, they're so sensitive that just like a little bit of heat or a little bit of cold is too much, and it's like everything is abrasive to the touch, to the skin, kind of like thorns or rubbing up against rough stones, because they have been in this protective womb, and then they're they're exposed, they're kind of raw, and there's a lot of suffering also in those stages of infancy. And so on, throughout life, as we grow, there are all of these various types of suffering, and then the particular suffering of illness, which of course goes without saying that there's so much suffering there. And the suffering of old age, where we start to deteriorate, where we can't use our bodies with the same ease and agility that we used to. Our faculties decline, where where we could see very clearly, we lose, our ability to see well. The faculty of sight declines, the faculty of hearing declines, and so on and so forth.
Ani pek dani chake Tibet dizajuda la meeting drone lamire. Ani ta ke chaga duza je june, ani lami sanu jikti, lami yor la torne, lami yor de, then woman shin ku sanu jikti the woman shin in Jorson Sam. Ani yang jik duza je ren, de lami la nebe simchi nam, de ta drupa tam de chang changne, ani jib zum gun Jorson Sam. Ta perna lata lami ni la pen rao yad na mato. 통용 말이다 대인도 산제 가래송스나 라데오 강바 토자니 더 배야하나 라멘다선 신동의 야젠데 라게 데 드베데 라게 롱존도레스 신동의 원에 진나 라메케레스 아니 드베데 데 라게 롱존도 갑서 아니 코란니게 족바효나 Lami tabzu je donghar si pe donghar samtim machaba yore. Da dezo ngozo ke ha kosna ngozo karisna. Da tundrola na ngozo jemedu. Nyawala na ngozo jemedu, yedala na ngozo jemedu, lami la jemedu. Da masi ni de ma shiba je keja she ma la na keja she ma shiba je gewa sin geven dreve shiba je magev sin magev donghar pang shiba je ma yindo ngozo tejine ga yin de zhuo xin de koran zo la gang er me da de zo wo me ji xin de gu song什么呀ngozo ma xi ba dong go ba ma si ni de ge jia xie xi ba ge wa zhe xi ba me ge wa bang xi ba ngozo den zhe ji me li ren xi de tao yo re da dun zhou dang nie wa ye da la da la mi de zo la jie song na de ni ga le dong a 라로 탑주제 동아시 던조라 니고가 동아시 다 공시바네 동아 섬데 미차바인도데 모토게 게와 빵시 딕파 게와 드럽시 딕파 빵시 란더제네라 제시드 모토가 다다다 코란솔라 르크 지바탄 야미름 제시아데 모토페 수남다 가신데 트로신데 레스
So then after the human realm, we have the realm of asuras or demigods. So as it says, Pate, with the skull in your hand, you scoop out the Amrita. This Amrita is sprinkled over the world of asuras, transforming it into the Buddha land Ogmin. Pate, again, by the touch of the Amrita, the asuras are purified and their three veils are transformed and they become Vajrayogini. So, so here, it's the same process. And with regard to the hungry ghosts, demigods. Thank you. So it's kind of like one way that they describe, we can't see the demigods, so we don't know directly, what their suffering is like. But the way that it's explained is that they're completely preoccupied by jealousy and fighting. So they're tormented all the time by their jealousy. And the source of this is, they say that there's this wish-fulfilling tree. It's kind of like there's two different levels of the god realm. So you have the demigods and then you have the gods that are above the demigods. And there's this tree that grows, from the demigod realm into the god realm. And the trunk and the roots are in the demigod realm, and they are the ones tending to the tree. But then the tree ripens, the fruits and the branches are in the god realm. So then the gods are the ones who enjoy the fruits, but the demigods are the ones who do all the work, and they feel like it's their tree. But then the gods are using all the fruits from their tree, and so they're furious and they're constantly wanting to conquer the gods and get their right to their tree, but they are helpless because the gods are more powerful, so they're constantly fighting, but then the gods are always defeating them, and so there's just this endless cycle, and they're completely tormented by this mind of jealousy and fighting. And so and so there's no, happiness to be found in that realm. And there's also, one thing she was saying is that, the human birth is so unique because there's this capacity to understand, to intellectually, our intellectual capacity is really sharp. So we can understand and we can also express and communicate. And we can identify, what is the correct conduct and what is conduct that we need to abandon. So we can easily identify virtue and non-virtue and we can know what needs to be done to abandon non-virtue and to practice virtue. But for the other realms, that's really not possible in the way that it is for human beings. Like in the 3 lower realms, there's too much suffering to be able to practice the Dharma, to be able to understand, and much less dedicate themselves to, practicing virtue and abandoning non-virtue, because they're too overwhelmed with the coarseness, the immensity of the suffering there. And same with the gods. With the demigods, they're tormented by jealousy and, through their jealousy and fighting, and so they can't turn their minds toward that. And for the gods, there's too much pleasure, so they can't either really dedicate themselves or focus to what on what needs to be practiced and what needs to be given up in the context of the spiritual path. So the human birth is really unique in this way, that there's this incredible opportunity to apply ourselves to spiritual practice that just doesn't exist, in the when we're born, as beings in the other realms. So dini
Pek dani chak Tibet dizaju layan ne ko to machine ta goni shibana ne dizaje chune te sunun je den laye yola tol de ome shinkan ron jorson sam ani tat ngoso ge ta kashe she dola da she goya mar ngoso migram je are migram je ne sem ke sam tan kono zampungan per ngoso chamba da ninji gom de kapsala ngoso ke dodo je chamba ninji o tirana chamba te tirana ninji te hinsan dodo mo 참 남바 산제바게 샘데 저지 타양가 샘게 고노레 마도지 셰고야 당든데 티아요 마레스 덴데 데네 라인네 고 도메신 양지 드지양 드즈데레네 아니 난주지 심지 다라라네 심지 탐지 드바 섬데 다네 아니 집좀 건져송섬 다라라네 다 라포동 그 동아도 디 다포 타지는 배 대직볼을 시에도 지는 니마 쟁니 그 더그 말 던전저 시 첨보죠 요래
그래요?
라포동 저 동하다 녀와 예다도 참아 요래 데이터 콩가레스나 로좀부터 라루르 지에서나 가레가레스나 아니 로좀부 갑설 때니 라단 라모도서 그 칼라리 돌로리 가레 고고 가레 드베 윤티 나다 된데요 니 코란마 로첸드 갑서더니 로총부 갑서 돌로를 드마카야요 말 조포 드마카야요 말 당어서는 조포 저거를 파폼 돌거를 던데 지기라 다 코노테게 라루르 지와랑서 던데 제연 드베 윤티 나다 된데요 데니 야 로첸드 갑서 데니 네마 돌로를 드마카야 미바데 카 아니 진공라 예를 드마카야 미바카 돌로를 잡반 토야 미바토 아니 라다 라모데서 짜라 마용 장네 된지 데니 코란게 라 포동게 동하세 만 감성 코알라 동도 달레데니 코란게 하코레 데니 페 동하섬지 마차베요레스 데인데 다 데선네 페심지 탐제 ngosoke 데니 집든 도르진 남제 망고 방라고 또 미그람 된제에서는 수수가 수남타 아니 덱바 장 코란라 피 어떤데 차그레스
Dini gola chigi kashi shegiore sum kare shegiore she migrem dini she ayo mare migrem re sum kare
she gumaris.
She's in it.
She's in she's in
Like
Hakome.
Shena?
No, she lana angry.
Scared.
Angry.
I think afraid. Shenang.
Shina langumari.
Shena?
Kansina mok laza kazanya chu nyamne chedi shehi dulasa.
Oh, re.
Sem ke samno tanya re. Den
Okay.
ngozo ke chama nangba ka chama sem ke jigira. Sem ke jiyora. Perna chamba gomna. Dodo ji chamba nge gom yin chirap chayin zamdo. Ninje gomna tara re. Dikpa pangna tendere. Dikpa pangna nga dikpa pangna chu dya ma to nga dikpa pangna tere dikpa tawamsa ta sons. Dodo je. Dikpa ta ma so dikpa pe ma bo so sons tende je mewa. Ade chama she goya yo mares. Sem ke kung hong ka samno ta ya ma iya.
So then we have the God realm. So it says, paid with the Amrita, with the skull in our hand, we scoop out the Amrita, we sprinkle the Amrita over the world of the Devas, or the gods, and transform it into the pure realm of Akanishta. And then when they make contact with the Amrita, their obscurations are purified and they transform into Vajrayogini. So same visualization here, and in general, it's all motivation, right? And she said also, she's kind of going back to the discussion that came up yesterday about like being afraid, having fear in the practice. And she said there's really no need to have fear, because it's really all just visualization and the motivation of the mind, and the motivation of the mind being love and compassion. And so when there's love and compassion there's nothing to fear. And this love and compassion, is ephemeral. It's not like, we can give you some solid thing that's love and compassion, like some object, like, okay, here, you got it, love and compassion, or you got it like this, whatever. Actually, that extends, she said, to all Dharma practice. And so we, when it comes to our Dharma practice, it's all kind of the just skillful methods to work on taming the mind. And that's all that it's about, all of it. And so there's no need to be afraid. We can really understand that this is just another method to tame our mind, another method to purify our mind stream, and that there isn't any sort of risk, there isn't any like reality to it, in that it's all kind of visualization. It's all, protected by the purity of our intention. And so in any case, when this nectar touches the gods and the god realms, their obscurations are purified and they become Vajrayogini. And she said, and so we also have to understand the suffering of the god realms. So the gods, or devas, they have an incredibly enjoyable life for a long time, throughout their youth as deva beings or gods. But then they experience tremendous suffering, which is said to be even greater than the suffering of the hell realms in its kind of psychological power, when they go through this period of aging and then transmigration. Like they're aging, they see they're going to die, and all their merit is exhausted because they've been enjoying it in the god realms, so they know they're going to just plummet to lower realms. And they see this, and it's utterly terrifying, especially after all that time of just like hedonistic enjoyment. And so the gods, and she said, again, this is really, you can read about it extensively in Gampopa's jewel ornament of liberation, or the precious, the garland or ornament of precious liberation. But there's, so this is just brief, but there's a lot of detail there. And again, there's a lot of detail about the suffering of all the different realms. So it's good to read that and really become familiar. But the gods, when they're young, devas, they have so many enjoyments, just the most exquisite food you can imagine. All of the objects of the senses are divine. And so their experience of the pleasures of the senses is this incredibly kind of refined and enjoyable experience of being gods. The finest food, the most beautiful and exquisite clothing you can imagine, these incredible divine scents and sensations, and everything is just the highest level of pleasure you can imagine. But then when they and throughout their lives, they are youthful. Their complexion is brilliant. Their smell is always good. Their clothes are always fresh. They have these flower garlands that are always freshly blooming. But then when they start to die, or when they know that period of aging starts to happen, their complexion fades and they start to smell. They've never smelled before, but they start to have body odor, and their clothes get kind of like dirty and soiled and old looking, and their flower garlands wilt. And usually, they're always kind of like sporting about with other male and female devas, and, all in groups and enjoying their company and of one another. But then all of a sudden they start to get old, and the other gods are like, ooh, something happened, what's wrong with, and they start to they reject the god who is aging, and then that's really painful for the god, and they start to sweat. They never sweated before, and then they look, and so they have this very, very uncomfortable, difficult experience, and then they see with their clairvoyance, like, where they're destined, like, oh, I'm dying, I'm going through the dying process, and that, I'm going to go to the lower realms. Like, I have nowhere to go at this point because all my merit is exhausted. I have no choice but to fall into the lower realms. So they see the tremendous suffering of the lower realms, and they know that that's where they're headed, and it's incredibly painful and terrifying. And so this is, what the some of the details, that characterize the experience of the devas, the suffering of the devas in the god realms.
Ani chu jia tsama semki kunglong de jirti tanya res. Kansina kona ba tsama shije tata chu den chu tsama lujin lujin ba tanya lujin. Nima sage ka ne ris ma che ba tsama ka lujin. Migram che chu sin. Chu la ya de ngoso ka danji chong tanya res. Danji chong re mena ani ngoso ka zambelen kanga nyoda chong do ya de danji le chibe de ni de ke kanga nyoda chishu de danji la chong res. Per na jakap chong chong ke jakap chimbo ke chong chong thowa yore de ni ma chia ke chonga thowa yore de ni tende de danji che tana de ni per na kamba che yu na khacha shu na ni go sa doksa che kupcha che na din ya de go da samsan ro tende do de doksa kupcha che yu na de ke de ma da na che ya ni ya go da ti gan sam ya go moda che na che ke de ma da ni go do sa tende je na chama ka nga da danji ri chi peres de chongya ke che de ma ngo so ko nyong la tan ya che de ani chu lu jin de lu jin ba da lu jin ba tang ba ka sa la yang ngo so mi na yo re ka che karze sang ke re ka che marze sang ke re ani karze ke ngo de zo ngo le de na ani jin ba ta ya ke karze ngo so ke ndo go re marze de lu sha ta ke me kwa che na ani jin ba tang re din ni ba 틱바리 조제 자와라 가르시나 뭐 창마게 아니 남바인선은 많은 마시래요 말했어. 많이 빼면 혼자 점프 값이라. 돈다당 지암이바 많이 빼면 혼자 장가요 말했어. 대응어서게 많은 장가 값이라 수소게 슬라진에서 곰네 대 수소게 짐바시야 계시데 다 sarton songjo tende te gom ani maden saw kapsal Sari yadar nebe simchi tamche dini jinre sen gongpang topsho chi zenzo chi miram chi na mikpa ke miram chi na donka yore malo miram la ma gom nga de so zer tron de ma je na ya zer de sanje da sancho sumban chuban par mang ni son san le de so sanje da ma nyara yada ni ya tar son sam de din ma je na mo to ne to ko ma na to ne chi pares 네토라 오만에 빼면 홍 랍랍나 그 오만에 빼면 홍 랍터 그래 얘네야 코그 돈다자 마거래 빈 그래데 전부지 빈거 말이스
So again, the most important aspect of our practice here with Chod is motivation. We're offering our body as a practice of generosity. We're doing these visualizations, but the point of this practice, the point of all our visualization is to diminish the mind of self-grasping. So we have to be really determined, to work on purifying our self-grasping. And part of what is needed for that is to really understand how much suffering comes from the mind of self-grasping, to really see that all of the strife, all of the trouble, all of the conflict, all of the problems in the world really come down to this single root of self-grasping. Everything that is problematic on a global scale, between countries, involving things as big as warfare, and then, also even in terms of, individual conflicts between people, and bigger countries wanting to, oppress and control smaller countries, and people with more power wanting to oppress and control other people, and then this sort of need for power and recognition and this reinforcement of the ego, so much that everyone is operating from that place of ego, or which is self-grasping. And so, and there's never any contentment, never any end to our desires. This also comes from self-grasping. So, we have a chair and we have one cushion, but that cushion's not good enough. We need to get another cushion that's like a squishier cushion, or like, other cushions or more pillows. We have one car, but that's not enough. We need another car. We need a fancier car. So all of these kind of endless needs and desires, they all come from the single root of self-grasping. So that's what we're doing. That's the single focus of this Chod practice, is to counteract and to diminish that habit of self-grasping through developing very vast generosity through this visualization of offering our body. And in the Chod, we have these two sections. We have the white feast, or the white offering, and the red feast, or the red offering. And that is because, it's sort of like just different beings who, some are like more like vegetarian, or they like, they don't eat meat, or they don't eat, in that practice, then we transform it into nectar, and they're partaking in the nectar. But then there are some who are kind of like more inclined, like wild animals, or that kind of appetite where they want flesh and blood and meat and bones. And so then for those beings, then we do the red feast. We offer the red feast that's more kind of the graphic sort of offering of the different parts of the body. But the main thing is to really understand what we're doing, and to practice in such a way that it becomes the source of developing love and genuine love and compassion, and it counteracts our self-grasping, our mind of self-centeredness and, ego fixation. And this is how it is really with all Dharma practice. So, for instance, when we practice Avalokiteshvara, and we're visualizing ourselves as Avalokiteshvara, and we're reciting the Mani mantra, and maybe we recite many, many Mani mantras, but we, the actual practice involving the visualization where we're seeing ourselves as this embodiment of great compassion, vivid and clear, yet the nature of emptiness, the indivisibility of luminosity and emptiness, doing the various stages of visualization and, reciting the mantra, and there are the processes where the lights stream out, and they gather the blessings, they make offerings and gather the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and return, and they stream out again, and they purify, very similar to this Chod practice. They purify the obscurations of sentient beings and transform all beings into Avalokiteshvara. So there too, the practice is the same. It's counteracting the mind of self-grasping through developing immense compassion for beings. That's the point. So we have to understand the point. And if we understand the point, then in reciting Om Mani Padme Hung, it has great power. But if we don't really understand the point and we just go through the motions, then it's kind of like, we're just like parrots. A parrot can recite Om Mani Padme Hung. We can teach a parrot to recite Om Mani Padme Hung. They can say it, but they don't know the meaning. They don't understand what they're doing. And so there's really not benefit. Like maybe there's a little benefit. There probably is benefit in teaching a parrot how to say Om Mani Padme Hung, but the benefit doesn't go that deep. So to really get benefit from these practices, we have to understand the crucial point, and our practice has to function in that way so that it really is serving or achieving, what our intention is.
And the Drunja nan tin page doing the lama yedam das dan drone also can drone book at the lama yedam. And it power control chijong soma. That is so carison and Drunja and Jela control season drone like control season drone then drone lana hakora also drone popo. The ring also color the so better day of what you use. Chinapa peronance and drone and drone. And tini lama yedam tini yonting gompo dream layate power control chijong the sorry. And you reduct ninja drones and that gone. Nyawa yada tundo lada lami that is all right tora. Reduct ninja tini also ninja chineta, Koransola tinja kanga yupa, shina, and also ninja chin, tinja and drone boyard. And the ginger ring have bent and was that Berna Blon Linchat and drone life and yasari. That Berna was okay, Blon Linchat lamna, that was okay. Jalan year, de Pamate, de Koransoga, Satre, Masson, the Telang also Linchayori. Nit de Blon Linchat, drone tella, ginger ring have bent as it. That Martina, Kahido at the Magic Lahado, Jagarnit into Yankee or Landa, not Yankee. Oh, the duck no pachick. Jagal, not Yankee into your ladder. Also, how come Magic Lada Magic.
Magic.
Jolly yori. What's of him and Gumpala? Your poche your Garchen Sama, Zonke, your poche your Cusimo, the Jack and Hadian, such a hinda corso. It's such a Numba Nashi Chasha.
So, Yapocoma, some Yopoche, your Kong Dumache,
not Yankee. Not in Hakosa. Ringhatin, Magic, Marie, Jinti, Jink. Oh, that ended intimate Jagar de Lago Marie, Kansina, not Yankees in Nitella, that's so no patanke. That is so long was okay. Lincha you and said no patching, and was okay. Jan Hidges Sancho to some gum Shavana, and it's no patang tomari, Kazang and Konshiban, Sanjeting into Nyamja Jo the Da, and Malare, but that's how my car called Malarepa. Conta upon a yote gazette, Nichirangum Podorjeke, Memdakan, Shawasuya, Chin lep, and in Malare Pack and Garden Tonga, only in the shower that chatters, deso, Rada, deso, Malashidan to Mad, Conchampa, the Ninja Gom de Gabs, and shower the Rada, Tama Shivacha, and Malare doing the Yosan Joyori. What in I chicken was okay, Chernobachi, his Tamata. Didn't know I you simply time to the Jason, Sosola the Lincha tang no pa tang ke yu na za ni tang to ge ma res
So then we get to this next section where it says, Pate, in the space in front of you, there appears the Guru, Vajradhara, Yidam, Dakas, and Dakinis, and the three precious jewels, Dharmapalas, and the beings of the six existences in their purified form, and those beings who do harm to others through the power of spells, and those evil spirits and demons causing instructions to others. So this is covering a lot, but we have in the space in front the Guru in the form of Vajradhara, the Yidam, Dakas, and Dakinis, the three jewels, and Dharmapalas. So this is addressing here, actually we have all the four types of guests. So when we do Chod, there's what's referred to as the four types of guests. So they're the guests who are like the exalted guests, the two types of exalted guests, and the two types of guests who are objects of compassion. So the two types of exalted guests are like the three jewels, and that embodies like all of the three jewels, the three roots are one, and then the like Yidam, and then the second is all of the like Dharma protectors, the Dharmapalas and Dharma protectors. Those are the two types of exalted guests. And then the two types of guests of compassion are the beings of the six realms. So we just went through that offering of all the beings of the six realms. So they're the guests of compassion, and those beings who are like who are kind of karmic creditors, with whom we have karmic debts, and that includes the evil spirits and demons, those who here it says do harm to others or by casting spells, so like sorcery, and that's also sort of attributed to this category of like karmic debts, and same with the evil spirits and so forth, because karmic debts are when in a past life, there's something that we did in which we really harmed others, and that was never repaired. And then we still sort of like have these karmic debts to those beings, because they were never resolved, they were never repaired. And so now in this life, maybe they cause harm to us through spells and sorcery, or through, the harm of evil, or the harm of like negative spirits, harmful spirits, and so forth, that sometimes that is attributed to karmic debts. So the way that we work with this in Chod is that, through again, that protection sphere of love and compassion, when we develop great love and compassion for those beings, then there's no way that they can actually harm us, that they can cause harm to us. So this is the power of love and compassion, which is really extraordinary. So she said, there's a story many of you are probably familiar with of Milarepa, when Milarepa was, in kind of a mountain, meditating in mountain caves. He was in these solitary regions high in the mountains, and one time there was this hunter by the name of Gompo Dorje who was out hunting, and he had a hunting dog, and the hunter was trying to kill a deer, and so the deer was the first of the three that stumbled upon Milarepa. He was running, he was exhausted, he was terrified, completely just like his whole system, shaking and terrified. He came into the presence of Milarepa, who was peacefully sitting there, in meditative absorption, and was pacified by the power of Milarepa's immense love and compassion. So the deer became, calm, and then sat down next to Milarepa, and Milarepa started singing, these Vajra songs, and then next came the angry dog, who was like frothing at the mouth and growling and just ready to like attack this deer. But then when the dog came into this sphere of like the peaceful magnetism of Milarepa and his Vajra song, then the dog kind of lost all his aggression, compassion and became pacified and sort of forgot that he was chasing the deer and came and sat down next to Milarepa on the other side. And then comes the hunter, Gombo Dorje, comes, then running onto the scene and is furious because he sees Milarepa with this deer he was trying to kill and the dog. And at first he's really angry, but then finally he too becomes overwhelmed by like these love waves of, Milarepa's meditative absorption. And then he becomes pacified, and then actually Gombo Dorje ended up becoming Milarepa's disciple. So this is an example of how powerful this mind of love and compassion is, that when we really generate love and compassion, that there's this power of pacification where, those harmful forces are pacified and there's no longer any harm, any possibility of harm. So we'll have a time for question and answer. Yeah. Sorry. But hold on to your questions and write some notes and
Any some change pompo tawanger zeta the control season drum gompo yon tin drum gerel long chan drum dan drum ye the some change pompo tawanger zeta ngoto na shi then ngoto chama lemdo tin na shi je sam any akaro mo kan zeta snap jare sinapte akaro mo kan sarwa daman adin pina to on home page sinete da go nam join ko song tola ko gori yina yang nga te zo den gon jin la den ta shi beton res na ate tong ban ni am da mi ba sinete
tong ni
ya tong ni am da mi ba ya tong ni sinaja da mi ba de ti para da mi sona tong ni chadre then akaro comes in it go pena go te yuna go te open jung so sem the open jung then na ta nyo yora then na shi ke comes in a go draw yeah go and this sarva dharma sinta pena chirang sembade go na shi jap busu tobo chana danji gan nasa chama tel lagre same the open mind yuna de matama halo la ya tang ke cha she ya tang de ni chu che ya la pe ngoso chu che ya la tomal same the open god same the jipo ga shin the troy kare son na chu na na da parsin tro na zong gang ge la tro wa hos ga shin the troy the ma je na de ni gang ba na ya same na gang a chong ya chama de he yong kare de ni da goes sarva sinatini tamje dharma sin chu tamje ra.
Okay, Gongta. So akaro mukam tene sarva dharma. Yeah.
Dinner pin natuta. Dinner pin natuta. Natuta la yi demani machipa. Muto semte tangbo sarji tonga yeba.
Ye duma machipa.
Yi demani machipa. Om ahong ko song to. Om ahong ko song to. Hong pek sineta danji jeba. Sohala na yatsoke dat kare yatsoke la ngoto tene drone ponje da chiran so gawa da jo jiponga ni tene euro nang do.
So sohala
yatsoke. Yatso. Ya poche euro nang.
So then what we have here is we have all four guests, the four types of guests gathering in the space in front, and then we're offering again the nectar as a whole, to all of these, or kind of to all of these guests as a whole, or to all of the guests together. So the four types of guests, again, being like the exalted guests of the 3 roots and 3 jewels, the guests of Dharmapalas, Dharma protectors, the guests of compassion, the beings of the 6 realms, the guests of, karmic debts, or the karmic creditors, like harmful spirits and so on. And then, so they're all gathered in the space in front, and then we bless again the nectar and offer it through, this mantra here that is Om Akaro Mugam Sarva Dharma Nam Adya Nam Nupin Natvata Om Ahung Peit Soha, sort of a difficult mantra. And the Om, so first we have the Om, which is, she said, normally we think of Om in the context of Om Ahung, in which it's like, Om is enlightened body, Ah enlightened speech, Hung enlightened mind. Here, when it's at the beginning of a mantra like this, it's like setting the sort of starting off with auspicious. It's like the syllable of auspiciousness. So it's the auspicious syllable. And then we have Ah. Here, Ah is emptiness or non-self. And then Akaro Mukam is like the opening of the door. So this is referring to like the mind, the opening of the mind. When the door of the mind is closed, we become narrow, we become hardened in our view. The mind of self-grasping is present, and all kind of illness and different difficulties, mental and physical difficulties can kind of ripen on us from that closed mind, that mind of self-grasping. But then when we open the mind, and we're kind of free and we're easy, and then there's like harmony and we're at ease, and this also leads to health. Whoever we meet with, we're like, oh, hello, and we can talk about Dharma. And when you have an open mind, like you're enjoying yourself and others are enjoying you, and there's just like all around ease and goodness. So this is the door opening, like the opening of the mind. And then with Sarva Dharma, so Sarva Dharma means all Dharma or all phenomena. And then this other one, this last part, which is difficult, Adya Nupin Natvata, is referring to the primordial unborn nature. And then Om Ahung is enlightened body, the qualities of enlightened body, speech, and mind. Peit is cutting through self-grasping, and Soha is like please enjoy or please partake. It's kind of like the final the word of offering. Oh, and she said also when she was talking about having an open mind, she said this is also really affects how we practice when our mind is open like this, because, and this is what then makes it easy to embody what is said about, in the 6 perfections, diligence. Diligence is delighting in or enjoying virtue. So when our mind is open, then we can enjoy. But when our mind is closed and there's self-grasping, then, this just leads to being annoyed and being uncomfortable, and my leg hurts, and this is boring, and what is the point, and I don't want to do this. And that all kind of comes from, again, having that kind of closed, narrow attitude, which is kind of rooted in self-grasping.
And that Julan Javando Sanje Mapango ke Sanjel Javachuri. Nga Mate Korang Pango Rishas Karichin Charis. And it's Sanje ke Chirang Jimba Matang in Pango Charis. Then Da Kong Korang Pango the Jimba Tang Sang Kudus. Karetango Tanya Jibzen Ngarami, Peshan Ngarami. Tanga Tang Tintin, Tangima Matang Leg at the Sa. Tanga Chick Tango to Kardachegos. Ni Sanje ke Chirangla. Jimba Tanya Chick Yoris. Sorry. Anga Jopam Jokayami Karetango. Chirang Med Tong the Capsule. Game of Horse. Game of Horna. Chirang Jimba te Chadres. Tata telling Java Pechimboyore. Kansana that things on Lada. Mothers also Germany in the Yunjo to the mothers of Bear Caressa. Tessa. marathon hello the laksu yo mari na tangbo pe ka nga chongso mo so yare
Yeah.
tangbo jamne na de ka ta nga lob dan dron ba o ni mata so hello la John Sams ta ngone hello lab lo sa mari te nga zab za ta ting chan chik pa cha so tangbo de pe ka le do te na shi ke sanje ka so re chiram la jibze ji ba ta ya mo dos yena chiram chi yores game of mala gemoton zamta chira yin bateris tarang ri kansina ngosa machilan de rodena ko karichana control lang mata sandre jin cha hello ndo la hada tinde.
So she said that there's a story about a man, who was a beggar. He was very poor during the time of the Buddha, and he went to see the Buddha, and he was lamenting, why my life is so difficult. I'm so poor. No matter what I do, I can't seem to, get out of this situation of poverty. Like, what can I do? Please help me. And the Buddha said, well, in order to create the causes, to change your situation, to get out of poverty, you have to practice generosity. And the beggar said, well, I'd be happy to practice generosity. I want to practice generosity, but I don't have any means. How do I practice generosity if I have nothing? I don't have anything to give. And the Buddha said, you can practice generosity. You have something to give. Every time you see someone, if you smile at them, then you're practicing generosity. So practice generosity with your smiles. Be generous to others by smiling at them, which is a beautiful instruction. She said, and it's also, really applicable, even to this day. There's so many ways we can practice generosity by being kind to others, showing a friendly face, smiling. She said, when she came to Germany, it was kind of hard for her because, people are not incredibly friendly there. So she, at first she would and she started going, when she was in her language class, and she was trying to be friendly, hello, and people would just ignore her, actually. And at first it was really upsetting, and she was I'm really what's wrong? I'm trying to be nice to these people and they're so unfriendly. But then she said she just started kind of fell into that too, and then started to kind of behave in a similar way because it was just part of the culture. So it's important, for her to also remind herself to continue to try to be friendly, even though the customs around are sort of a different type of way. But it is, to just think about how much it can positively impact someone just to give them a smile, just to have a friendly expression. It's a really profound form of generosity. So, yeah. But she said, but now she's really becoming more like a German. Gandhi, hello, Lavna.
Koranzo chaya majena ngarang ngo chadwa halo la de tingchang an jamin na ji cher kha ta sa de samna de ma to namje ngo shibai nam halo la kmi.
Yeah. So she said, because it feels really weird if you're hello, and then someone ignores you, then it makes her feel then they think she's crazy or something. So she said instead she just, just doesn't say anything. She doesn't greet people now, with the people she knows, because that's what they do. They walk in and they don't greet. They don't say hello. You just kind of ignore.
Okay, that's no joke. That joint jana baguchi the jinstan joint the not a synapse in the joint pot is a synapse in and then joint jana burger. Jalan the chela Laura. Tapenang also the Jetla Begulana Tango, the Arila Mampocheda, Jamont on the Jatamont on the Jigbodo, Jigbona dinner. And it Duterate the Sora just at the pair, Duter the Yata, Sanapti, the Dutung or Chasona, Duter not the Sanapti, Dutung or Chasona, this so then drawn Napaka Yan Chupatan, River Sanke, and the pair go at the Tsamba. The Charis, some jerjes tang also some not than the Quran solo the legend Drupon gawa the jiva some ne de yong sho some the kuno jari ne pen dren Trenchin zawa da jiva pardin lama tambanam ta duzu de yam piari ne miram chen Trenchin zawa da jiva pardin lama tambanam shard om a land kon shipan sinabra ne page yadam ju de jenata yadam ju de jede cha ju nam la nami pa ju de je ta de ni jon kor ram jam de pe che ya mi pa tang mi pa de la cho pe ma po pemne de zo shar de lan yam puyus sa pa mi pa de ta de la ya de sa mi ge de ma sa che ge de na ma kam song ko al hong ro yore Sami ge de ni Quran sol temne tendre raisons ne pe yan ramji yen ni yobata ramji yen ni yobata ta chujong dang gongpo odang de sorry on jun di yob pa odang kanro koncho ron po jen namba son tamba chujong sum ishi je jin dan din ba tam je nam je jin dan din je tuji dan sin tuji da jin ne se Jan Ninja Dani, Jin Zaytani, Totab, Nuba Chimbo in Bachana Dorje. The so town or the Nipas in the Bay, you are, Yuba. That Jeju Yuba, the Tonyam the Yam Burger use.
So then we're offering, so we say all those guests from the guru all the way to the demons of the afflictive emotions, after having tasted the amrita through their Vajra tongues, they have enjoyed it and are satisfied. So we can think that all of these different guests, they partake of it, and actually there's this kind of funny visualization that's always part of it, where the guests have their tongues become like Vajra straws. So their tongues are like Vajras and they are hollow. They have like an opening and they like draw up, sort of like suck up the nectar through their tongues, which are these hollow Vajra straws. So they've tasted it through their Vajra tongues, like they've sucked it up through their Vajra straw tongues, and they taste it, and then because the essence is this primordial wisdom nectar, they're completely pervaded, by this like bliss and blissful, wisdom of emptiness, that then they become fully satisfied. All of their harmful thoughts and intentions are pacified, and we offer in particular, to the kind root guru and gurus of the lineage, and it says Om Ahung, and then it continues, that through this Amrita is being offered to the yidams of the 4 tantras. So this is referring to like all the yidam deities of the 4 classes of tantra, the 4 classes of tantra being, Kriya Tantra, Charya Tantra, Yoga Tantra, and Anuttara Yoga Tantra, and also all these different classes of deities and all their countless mandalas. Om Ahung, the Amrita is being offered to those dakas, dakinis, the 3 jewels, the 3 precious jewels. So we're mainly focusing here on the offering up to the guests of the exalted guests of the 3 jewels, the 3 roots, the deities, the mandalas of deities, and so forth. And then it says to the Dharmapalas, so all the Dharma protectors possessing the eye of wisdom in the perfect realm of Dharmadhatu, so like pervaded, by the ultimate truth of emptiness, who have, and then it says actually, so it sounds like this is a mistranslation. It says who have compassion and power. But actually, the way she described it is Tugje and Tutop is actually, so Tugje is compassion and Tutop is power, that this is referring to the bodhisattvas of the 8 bodhisattvas, the main bodhisattvas of Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, or the Buddha of compassion, and the bodhisattva Vajrapani, who is like the Lord of Secrets, or the guarder, the one who guards secret mantra, who is the who is associated with the enlightened activity of power. So the powerful one and the compassionate one being Avalokiteshvara and Bhadrapani. And all of the bodhisattvas, they're just representing, but all of the bodhisattvas. And that's all.
That you la pinto kase yusari, so teni mates lokodo. Seram korwa toma mipanisa. That jiwa toma mipana, so namba sanjepa yimban zonde, so ke passion churchiva linya ke namju labdeir. Then do. Tang also que jiwa toma me pan kaza pama ma zeba yo mare dedan java chimbo yor de also jiwa toma me pan deni tama data parde inje den kamsan redo den korvachens moton korwa sinide ko denje korde yor korwa sinide jamda shon jamda jen jamda nyawa je yada ta le kare sana ya la je goyade moso ka le gewa sa shari ya je le mege sa hi dongar ke nyawar che de ma che va chi ke ngoso ka ta nyamne che de ya teres ngoso la karesna jerse lalina song yore le jin dong kan nam shin dong po ngoso le de dong kan ri na shiris nam shi den dong po na shiris ngoso shiv kapsa Gewada jamninji chancho samta jimba tang tsucham songdeli de mado konroya jia yo maris. Megewa deke tsama man koran pengro res. Dende da ju nyamne ya po jesona. Da jiwa toma mi ban sa yari tata injin kamsan rodorun koverche. Da se deli deke muso pa se ma se deli deke namike. Da kazanga shimba kaishe pu lo somni. Ni sa dawa che ni sa ni shinro da ta konso karesina pa mese de ke namike lencha de ke ani che tongdo se ke sa lencha ani degdong na tsan lencha se deglan da chiran ya bo ma le che dokya ten de che dokya ten de la ya ta de ni dong sina shuwa de su lencha de ke karesina de ni ngoso la pe khakhela mete korana de yado de tso jiwa ngama ke ngoso ke mala pa de dong de ke lenchares ta me ka he yor yang kangba mi saya mi tonya mi je de le yoris ta de tso kuma ko jab ja jab cho de chokyong ke lenchares de de ta ngoso ke tso lencha ji den je me ke ba sa hyong 주 ya po chi nyamne cheson de lencha de chama jangro res de ta de ju de pe jiktin songgo ka karin sabchun tayong ma yin ba songdo ma do le lawri somdo and sabchun tamong ba sabting sapo pe yin ba yumchi de ne ko yas de mo so de ju nyamne ya po je le de lubjin cheson na de zu lencha de so mo so la che tong ka se me che se yan che tong tong ma yin ba che ren wa de ya ani kuma ka de se nor ke len cha de ke ta pang go cha de ya de la yang ti ju nyam ne che so na so so pan po ke ma cha ya mo so de je ta da na ko le sin ye de pe yo kan sin na pu ji la ama pa la che da ama che ni la pu ni yu na che de ning je po leka ya po chek de la ning je o me ba leka me ba ka nge ka de che de ngone jina phama che la pu ni ne cha chik pa ani do de chik pa chik jang go do yong go yo mare de ka sang ma le kan do yo res
Tene pachenga inji ke la ne ki jela tene bar sang sha na.
Naso.
Okay. Kain sene dutu de yoro wates mo.
Naso.
So, we really ought to understand that how immense the suffering of samsara is, and the cycle of samsara being that, from beginningless time, we have cycled, life after life after life, endlessly in cyclic existence, just following the winds of our karma. Sometimes going up, sometimes going down, depending on the karma, all of this intricate weave of karma and how it ripens, in different ways, in different times, and leading to our taking rebirth in different places. And, first of all, that we know, given this extraordinary time period in which, we've been circling since beginningless time, that there's no one who among sentient beings who has not been at some point in time or another our own kind mother or father. And so because of our karma, sometimes we accumulate the karma that leads us to be reborn in higher realms, to have, pretty relatively painless existences where there's more pleasure, there's more enjoyment, but that's not permanent. We exhaust that karma, and then another karmic ripening leads to a different type of situation in our next life. Sometimes we accumulate, all of the virtue sort of ripens in a favorable existence, and then all of the non-virtue ripens, leading us to an unfavorable existence, to even taking rebirth in the lower realms of hell, the hell realms, or hungry ghosts or animals. And so this is, as we practice, we're really creating different causes. It's not the karma to keep us cycling, but it's karma that can go towards the result of liberation and awakening. And through our Dharma practice, we can purify so much karma, so much negativity. And so, as it says, for instance, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, at the time of death, the consciousness, which is like the guest, will cast aside the guest house of the body. So this body, this present body, is just a temporary guest house that the guest of our consciousness, the traveler of our consciousness, temporarily inhabits. And at the end of this life, which won't be, very long regardless, we'll have to continue on and we'll take another rebirth. And so when we really understand this, then we really become convinced that there's really nothing in this life that is of any consequence apart from the karmic seeds that we gather. So the only thing that's really meaningful is our Dharma practice, practicing the 6 perfections, generating love and compassion, and conducting ourselves, based on pure conduct, really all of the virtue that we accumulate and all of the non-virtue, so then our entire life, the focus of our life shifts, and it becomes about, gathering virtue and abandoning non-virtue, because that's the only thing that will have any significance at the time of death. That's what will determine, what our future migrations are. And so there's really nothing other than that really matters in this life, in all honesty. And so if we have, if we engage in wrongdoing, if we harm others, we will experience the result of that. And so, for instance, there are those who are violent, who hurt others, who kill others. And so the result of, for instance, killing is, as she had mentioned before, there are some who are born and they don't live for very long. Their longevity is cut short. There are some who only live to be like 3 years, and they die as small children or in infancy. So that's often because like a direct ripening of having killed others, in former lives. Or, maybe there are those who really suffer from poverty, who are stolen from, who can't manage to accumulate wealth. And again, that can be the result of not having practiced generosity in former lives, or having stolen from others, and so forth. And so it's so profound, this practice of Chod, because there is the power to purify so much negative karma and to kind of repay our karmic debts in a way that fully, like, even purifies the non-virtue of killing. And so that's why Chod is it belonging to the category of Zapchu. It's a profound dharma. It's an uncommon practice, and the reason why it's in that category is because it's very powerful, and it's also not easy. It's not easy to necessarily accomplish, and that's the reason, is because it really, when we really practice Chod correctly, and we're really offering our body in this way that is of pure love and generosity, then the power of that to purify negativity, negative karma and karmic debts is so vast and profound, that all of those sort of karmic obscurations and debts can be fully purified. And karma, we really, but it also necessitates, and one thing we really have to become completely convinced about is the reality of karma. You see such, for instance, even like a parent, a single, mother and father might have two children, and those two children might be wildly different from one another. One might be very attractive and very kind of have good luck, in all that they do. Their studies go well. They're, easily successful in life. And one might be, not so attractive, and they really struggle, and their studies don't go well, and they can't really get a good job. And, it's interesting because these two kids have the exact same parents. So they come from the same sort of genetic material, and they had, in many ways, the same conditioning. They were raised in the same way, but there's sort of these very different experiences, even these two kids from the same parents. And the reason for those differences is because of karma, according to the Buddhist view. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I told her we should have a break now. Yeah, that's a break. Yeah, so we'll do bodhicitta, the bodhicitta prayer, which is, I think, on page 27. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise; where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. So maybe we come back at 11:30. Yeah, because then ZAP or ZAB, depending, CHO. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Sanje chiso songyana.
Okay, so we can
Andan
do.
chibarisha.
So we can do the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha on page
10.
10. Thank you. Page 11, actually. Got it in teachable?
Yeah, linti.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit. In the May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion to near and far.
Nasoda. Pe yan se dan je benje budon no zi lonje Chod je be shar da on sita. Benje budon
Chodang kare.
Chodang
Chu. Rebe.
Chodang Kyokati Odin pe yan se dan page 10
At the bottom.
Yan se tam ngi je benje budon sinta karen to janki lagre. Ngi nga janki. Tinje ta sosol no pa chi ki ta sosola solo no pa chi ji lula no pa chi ki semle no pa chi chura pa chi chi ki changma ta tinje re. Tinje inde deso ta benje budon to ngi nga janki deso no zi lonje ji Chod je be shar da ta ngo ke pa ta te la sa pa chan hi ji chan cho sum ji che hya na chen no ba ji to ma res ta koran so ngo ke de zamba je ta tini ma so ne ni di ya ta de kan ji ri ta ti ma ta de man ji ri man ji la na ta ngo so sha san ke de so mar ze ar ta de kan ji ta kar zan so ni na shi ke chuto nang la nyam ne je wa na nyam de nyam ne je na kan ji ji bo je na ya po mari kan ji da man ji ni ke nyam ne je na ya po yo res ani so so rang ji bo nang la nyam ne je wa na kan ji ji bo nyam ne we na ya res ani ka si da chuto ko lo ma ning ba na de ne kan ji man ji ni ke nyam ne je na ji res them the kanji the tes la le la yore this ngo jara manje de yang the miram te san no lo pa tan so na ni kang che ra ngona chin je so ke miram che ma dong us ma che de she go ya che o ma de yang don da ha ma go na
So so then we have, so actually it starts with Pate. The Amrita is being offered to the sentient beings in the 6 realms of his existence in their purified form. These beings have been wandering through infinite past lives. So this is what she spoke to before when she was talking about this endless wandering in samsara. During those periods of lives, I have taken their lives. So we've killed them, we've beaten them, stolen their possessions, and so therefore we are indebted to them. And then it says again, Omahung Pate, again this Amrita is being offered to the spirits and demons, those performing destructive spells, doing harm, and who are disturbing beings on their path. So this is, to again address those harmful spirits and demons and so forth. And then actually we move now into the red offering. So everything up to this point has been what we call the white offering or the white feast, where there's transformation of the body into this primordial wisdom nectar. But with the red feast, we're giving to those beings who are like carnivorous, who are like more like the evil spirits and entities who want to eat like raw flesh and blood and bones and so forth. So actually, she said, when you're practicing Chod, if you're doing it, in a group like this at the Dharma Center all together, then we can do both the red offering, the white offering, and the red offering. But she suggests that when you're doing it on your own at home, it's best to just do the white offering because it's easier and it doesn't trigger kind of those fears and concepts, that we spoke of before. And, if you're doing the red feast and then you have like kind of wrong views about it, or you get confused about it because of the graphicness of the visualization and stuff, then it could really end up causing your practice to go astray. So it's better to just stick with the white offering at home, and then when in a group, you can do it together, both the white and the red.
That kasi white da kanji de chipo to aina ye koran so data de arta den do tene ma tene jogore de jimpa jachi zuya kazang so jimpa jachi shoda de ma ko chek cha so o de
Jimba judging kappa?
Yeah. Oh, dear, Dade. Didn't go on, Goris.
Oh, okay.
Tata didn't market short down, carried the short down. You know, the man, you the short down, you should talk to Pacha.
You should start
short down, Chukini, man, you wrote it, and the Jimba judging matter.
Did Jinja Jimba
Yeah, then Joma love you, yes, Tata. Tata was a man to shed a yacht. You might don't look up. And it do that man did in a right offer, Dedo.
Red offering?
Yeah. And then the Dutzer Lama, Jose Le Palan, the Gigi Tokanis, that Dutzer Lamas in Goni, Dutzer Yora, then you the Gilana. That was so good. On the tampo, Gibson Dodge Nam so Sam did Gibson Dodge Nam Germany, some did Dunji Tokani, did Chunchong Lawate, then Dunji Tokan, Zertic Po, de Pomatade, and did the Zertic Pond, then it de Pomata Tade, then it Julius Shire was a bear. Julian Transia, Julie Gomnoya, Julian Takpa the Timpa Meba, Takpa the Timpa Meba, Teni, Jumanashi. Kajeta Metasolo Nashi Zo Minturndo, Mintur, Minton nashi, or Julite, any raw nashi, Chemboje gom, any chart the Jamson nashi gom, Ken Rupas in Tini, Rupate, Ken Rula, and the Chiran Tonio Mishinam Joe, Rupachipo, you enjoy the Ken Rula. Then it is okay to tramtos in the bed, Jamson Dramna, Trampa Mampoya Dochunjo, Dinashi Mampoche, Ramjam Jig, that you can't count the little. Don't some Jig, Ramjam, that you can't count the gom. Then now she sipa, Che Usari, some now I didn't landed. Then it carpo like this. That is all Reja the Jia, the Jatuya Marita landed. Sorry.
So then we have, so it says with the red offering, ray of light emanates from the heart of the Yidam. So the Yidam is yourself, you know. It is Vajra Varahi, right? So actually the way this is translated is a little bit confusing because our mind is Vajra Yogini, and so from the heart light rays emanate and dunke garere dunke dela
dunke tambo ngoso dorje namjer ngoso ke soso ke semte dorje namjer je leka lenki changma dorje namjer laba ke ya
so nikare
ya taten dunchi ni tokache dunchi je tokala ngoni ngola na tokala na del lagra tokala semni özerje pun
yine yang dunke dorje Naropa rang so dorje Naropa ni yorbe yo
marin de ko dorje namjer mache ina chiranke perna chiran san notanda chiranke ke chiranke chanhe je gomna chiran gom ke chiran ni yo mare virginia
okay
tatan dunchi pusate Vajir yogi ni pure koran vajir ni som go mare.
Okay. Just trying to get clear. So I was confused because if our mind is Vajra Yogini, but it's saying the visualization generated in front, that is also Vajra Yogini because Vajra Yogini is our mind, but she's also the one like doing all the work, right? Like scooping up the contents and offering it and feeding it, you know, the beings and so forth. So here, a ray of light emanates from Vajra Yogini's heart, who is visualized by you in the sky in front. And then as those light rays strike the remaining part of the Amrita, the nectar, then it becomes the red feast. So like a mountain of flesh, an ocean of blood, and a pile of bones filling the whole universe. So it becomes this really vast offering of flesh, but it's like illusory, she said. So it's like it becomes this illusory, and I don't know if the word, it says transform, but interesting, it doesn't say illusory in the text. It just says into a mountain of flesh, but actually it says an illusory mountain of flesh. So she emphasized this word illusory, which is that, you know, it's like a hologram. It's not solid in any way. It's like this mind emanated kind of, you know, again, this visualization that's empty in nature. So sort of like a, you know, something that has like the nature of like a mirage. And then also to like an ocean of blood, and piles of skeletons that are really extensive and vast, filling up the whole universe. And then, let's see. So lade lagare la yen gumpa.
Kare.
Lade la chik lade.
Na yisi per lade.
Yeah.
That is on the shame, Majan Yasa, Conso Hakum, Mozart. Then the man joke on the Chiranga Hakum, the Nga Hakum. Kaisina Kares, take Kares and Hako Mare. Regent, Kaisina Mosoka, Migram Gental, Latan, J. Mozon, Pacheting Kitsama, Mera and also Shimara, Zambel and the Mayu, Tama, Main she got on that dogs and Tomara. Then I she got this substitution at the Migram Jan, London knows this howler you put in it, Locasada. Tena you but any me, then it bala you but ni, then in Jompo, Tirans of Mapoche. That's had that the Yora, yerla yebda the rug da go yora oh the so chama da me ba jen the so la de ni so so ke le sha tha de ya kang nge che de jin ba ta ya oh de ne je me ram che shan de.
So then what we're doing is we're going through and we're naming all of these beings who want to partake of the red feast, the kind of more sort of scarier classes of beings, the, who are carnivorous, who are like really, kind of harmful ghosts and spirits and so forth. So, beginning here as it says, like, I offer this to all the gods and demons and all of samsara, like all of the spirits and demons. And then it goes through all these different types. And she said, and actually we did in our last place of teaching, she went through each one and it was very challenging because, like, I don't know what all these different classes of spirits are. So it was a challenge to try to figure out like how to translate these and like what they really are. And she said she herself also doesn't really know all of them. And so she said that's actually not so important. We don't have to understand every single one. And we in the West also have like a different kind of way of classifying or thinking about these non-human spirits and entities. There are a whole bunch of them in Tibet. And she said, but really it's just kind of this general, there are those who create problems and obstacles, harmful entities and spirits, all sorts of different types of spirits like nagas and yakshas and rakshas and, the bardo beings and like local spirits, land spirits, planetary spirits who inhabit like different, types of like environments, woodlands and trees and meadows and, so many different types of non-human spirits. But we don't have to like focus on and know, exactly what they are and who they are and what their names are. We can just sort of generally think, to all of these different types of beings we're offering.
Tinsan tinjina da la de la yebda ko so no pa che he yu me yo cho ha ko pena da ngi mai na ngo cho la sang gu jo ya de pe chung chung ri sang gu da tinsan zamber len ke o la tar kha yu be cholo lo ngo ne tinjina lo tinjina de la de yebda da ri lo ka pa la la ri ke da ko de la de yebda da ko cho controllant no tene mo so sang ju ya ani choka jinda la ji cho pa za ji ne tende je no pa dang de tene naga ke da mo so la no pa jang de chlo ja o de chang ma mo so di ka re na ye la ye da de so mo so no pa dang ge yo res 당 회마이나 상구 조야 조도가 총총 가서리 상구 조도든 총총 마도 요 말이 저로 조도서 검령 거라미 다 벤나 뭐저 정왕아데 회마이나 뭐저 조고 차데 뭐저 샤데 사단 저와요레 차데 촌 저와요레 아니 long de ngo so bok lun jwa yore long mina ngo to bok tan sa che mina long do sa che mina ngo so shya ke ni kare long de jwa yore ni nang ka de sem de jwa yore ni de jo jo ya de ngo so ke ni ma ta te kare la de jo ke me ke jwa yore din de je jwa yonde 다 저 참만 어쩌라 다 어쩌 담라 제 어쩌 다 단지 쇼제는 다 사오터카들로 쳐져서 가 신나듯이 다 심지에서 세 되니 쳐나나다 냐 담라 동 때서사 되는 쪼바 휴 되제 정말 쉬어데 네마 쪼보는 다다다 저워차는 되는 어쩌라 또염 나사나야 돼 미그제야 미바 된제진을 그래서 대인데 저 참마 주던 저와요레스 주라 저와요 주데 진바 땅 된제진을 그 산현제 검소나 저sor라 강을 맞아와 되니 된제 정거레스.
So she said, but, it's important to kind of recognize even if we don't know each and every one and like all the details, like to kind of generally have more of a sense than we generally do about these different spirits and, our relationship with these spirits, and to understand that like a lot of environmental imbalance and problems and also natural disasters are connected with our broken relationships with these beings. So for instance, these days we are like plummeting the earth, so much extraction of resources beyond what is necessary, just mining all the treasures beneath the earth, mining the oil, or extracting the oil, kind of taking way more than what is needed and disrespectfully so. So these beings, many of these landlords and spirits are angry. So like Lokapala is the name of one who's like a land god or land entity. And she said that she thinks that, the types of earthquakes that we have in modern times are much greater. And, of course, the destruction is much greater than what it was, in the past. She said there were always earthquakes, but, the degree of like the destruction of earthquakes in modern times is much greater, she thinks, than in the past. And she thinks that's partially because this earth entity, this spirit, the Lokapala, is angry, and that the earth lords are angry, so they're more, they're more agitated, and also, for instance, doing things like damming rivers and polluting rivers and bodies of water, that this is making the Nagas angry. And so there's a lot of destruction from Nagas, a lot of water destruction from water, natural disasters involving water and such. So she thinks, this is due to this like imbalance and this lack of recognition and lack of respect, because actually the elements are our friends. Like the 5 elements, we're very, very closely bound with them. Like our very body, the flesh of our body is the earth element. The blood of our body is the water element. The breath of our body is the wind element. Without breath, without wind, we can't live. We depend upon this for all of the elements, for our very life force. The space element is mind or consciousness. The fire element is the digestive capacity of the body system, the warmth, that is generated in the body. But because we're so out of sync with these natural elements, and our self-grasping as a whole of humanity is so heightened, and because we are pillaging and raping the environment, basically, really disrespecting the environment and these beings and these spirits, that things, those which were our friends, these beings that are connected with the environment, have become our enemies. It's like if you don't treat your friend well, their friend is going to become an enemy. And so that is what has happened, with these beings of the environment. And so we have like increased natural disasters. We have, because we have, really, we have increased epidemics and plagues like, coronavirus, and it's all connected, and it has a particular connection to the practice of Chod, this kind of elemental situation and balance and the disturbance with these beings that we've been ignoring. So in this way, Chod is really beneficial to restore that connection, to heal that connection, and to purify, the kind of disturbances there.
아니 홍 다 그 dorje song dorje tok dorje den jura me pa den je kong nang pa cha ne ani der shos der yonochin der des ne perotis ani sha ga na sha ta ngo so me ram je are je ngo se ka re na nga den je ka je sa da ye do la ya de jimchi ka re na dan je de pa ma ta je ni ba te me ram te vi ma she 다 샤 무보 되니 거도 나 제야 말이야 뭐저 참마 미름지 가르치나 남바 산제바 신이되게 생거 좋은데 생거 매런지를 제네 제야리마도 제 무엇에다 소소소소 세tabne 된다지는 말이지 대하고게 개좀 말이지 아니 미름지는 되니 지랑소라 샤간 샤차간 차도 되니 rupalagana rupama papalagaga papa ta jetangte la landre jibda de koransul ta kajela ganke shagar kajela la rupa gar kajer chagar ni koransul kare gogota che kyana moso danje de chonro res.
So then we read through like all these different types of, planetary beings and spirits and demons and so forth. And then at the bottom of page 12, it says Hung Hung Hung. So Hung 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 is, again, sort of like the blessing and blessing of enlightened body, speech, and mind. And we're saying, come here, gather here, eat, drink, eat flesh, drink blood. Those who like flesh, eat it. Those who like blood, drink it. Those who like bones, gnaw on them. So here, again, this is the kind of visualization that causes the kind of fear that was brought up the other day. So there are really two reasons for the fear. One is because it's indicative of our self-grasping, because we have so much self-grasping that we find it scary, this concept of like offering the body. And then second, because we don't understand that this is just a visualization, that we're just visualizing here. It's a practice that is skillfully directed towards subduing the mind of self-grasping. So everything in Buddhism, all of these practices are based on visualization. It's all visualization, it's imagining. And so here we're offering the contents of our body. There are some spirits who like to eat flesh. There are some spirits who like to eat blood. There are some who like to eat bones. So we're saying those of you who like it, eat it, and so forth, so on.
아니 홍 토시 뻬제모 미제세 단 토시르데 시뻬제모 리 시뻬제모 미제니 시티서다 마 나라시네다 나라시네 니와는 마슈나니 저그리 디아타테니 나이게 시바스네 페르나 모조가 오네게 토마뇨 유사리 삼데 덴제 난데 란데다 다 다캬 윤충 만올라시네다 카셰 몰라 누바친키 놀 제젤라 누바친키 누지체가 게레 다네 게이다 파체친키 데서 춤처동 버스다 다 가다 춤처동라는 산제티 거운 망포슈라 산제티 띵에 냠야제데 드그 춤처동데 되니 드라마다 탑되니 다단 다운도 코너 콘팅에 냠야제데 메도가 찰바바소 호텔 춤처동라 되니 제다서 춤처다 아무다 버포몰라제 포모플라제 되니 제몬다마다 파체치야 그치 된다진데 지랑서 된지 진키도 저라 참마 남커 진서인 들려셔서 남칸이 다 가장 공거 드와치서 트렌텔 지랑서 남칸이 베 진바체나 베 망볼러그라 어디나지 지랑서 효신 되는 효스 반난 차파 인데 별로셔디 반난이 차파 반 차파 망본 요거라 된저게 반난 차파 바나시 요노치 사이롱마 인데 사다운이다 long top jam na pen jo pora motin sabe chayan de na ches chirancho saya kare gona de na chembo use tonya kare gona use jumbe papander to chirancho junya keta toglo papando kare gona teis mer lawan de na shamsita de lawalan da gang na shi shigona na mando je yora 어디서 상케 되나시 유스 칠한데 나는 도요서 치란서 란데 라다 제 상마데 치란서 데베 유팅하데 데데 제가르 세 샤가르 샤타고타 배심보 된제 유스 되니 토바미 반존제 치란서 카레 가나 나 된제 유스 정말 효스
So then it says, from the top of samsara, so this is like, the very peak of the formless realms, the formless God realms or Deva realms, all the way down to the lowest realms in hell, the hell of ceaseless torment or narak. All demons and spirits who cause harm to us, our wealth and possessions, those obstructors, those demons who can perform miracles. So miracles is an interesting translation here. It should be something more like magical displays, because it's sort of like, these beings, these different demons and entities, they kind of try all these different ways to trick us, to kind of conquer through, shape-shifting magical displays and things like that. So for instance, when the Buddha, she mentioned the other day, before the Buddha attained enlightenment, he was really assaulted by the Maras. They just pulled out every possible trick to kind of keep him from becoming enlightened. And the Buddha just remained unwavering in his meditative absorption. And they were shooting arrows and stones, but that, those arrows and stones transformed into flowers, and it became a rain of flowers. That there was nothing, they couldn't penetrate his sphere of meditative absorption. And so there are all of these different magical displays that these different demons and spirits, might do. And then, so these demons who can perform these magical displays, they all assemble together in the sky in front of us like gathering clouds, like descending rain, rush to this place like a strong wind. This is the place where you will get plenty of flesh to eat. So we're inviting all these beings. We're saying, this came up the other day, quickly come here, we're summoning them, come quickly, like, clouds gathering quickly in the sky, like, rain suddenly descending, like, strong winds blowing through. They're all kind of swirling here to come to receive what we're offering, this flesh. There's plenty of flesh to eat. There's much blood to drink, much warm skin to wear. They can wear our warm skin, like clothing. And delicious marrow to chew. So marrow, the stuff that's in the bones, that they can gnaw on. May there arise instantly a heap of offerings for you, the demons, to satisfy your senses. So this red offering that we're giving to them becomes whatever it is that they want to eat. It is like pleasurable to all the senses. It becomes endowed with all of the favorable qualities of the senses, and it's just delicious and satisfying for them. And so we're offering this, to these beings who delight in these red, in a red feast such as this.
I'm visualizing them eating meat, right?
Your flesh, blood, bones, and
Yes.
marrow and whatnot.
I'm not wishing it on anyone else.
No, just you. Yeah.
Karilas.
Ini rangi sha mato mi shimba gi sha la sopa chupa bu
Mi
mi
ya
somebody.
yore.
Let me give you
Perna yang karisana korang ke chopo, korang pala, korang amala, korang ngoshipa. Dinde jen na deuna. Ani korang miram jena korang naya ke.
But the kongso gi sha la sopa chupa bu
Yeah,
ne.
korang miram je, korang so na dera. Dinde jen yang miram jen dinde jen yang daya ke yore.
So actually, she said, there is a practice, there is a visualization for those, like if your loved ones, your parents, your friends, like if you're a chodpa, if you really, I'm guessing, if you've done this for a long time, and you really get the compassion of it. If your loved ones, your parents or your friends are sick, that you can visualize offering their body to these beings, to these karmic creditors, to purify their obscurations and, and repay their karmic debts so that they can recover from their illness.
Karisana jula tabshi mangpo yore. Ani ju memchu zon tanya yore. Memchu.
Mimchu sena?
Me tang jemsek na shi. Ni me tang jemsek ha ko ya.
Jinsek.
Jemsek ona shi memchu zon tanya yore. 아니 야 먼저 나서나 주 참배 자살라는 야 참배잔 르잔 되니 될 메빠진 만나도 제들 될 메는 참대 르잔던 되니 뭐대로 자던 야 지야여 야 찔라 가산치랑 라서 가르라서 냐네 주니지 아데 야 지야여 벤나 지모니 마콜리 아니 나차 용게 네바던데 아니 냐네 주 마당네 된저진 주니란 요
So there's so many different methods and types of chud practice. So there's also like fire puja chud. So chud that envires fire, like fire offerings. There's also like ransom sampa, kind of ransom chuds, which actually maybe you remember, Alana, we did for the Nyungne. There's this thing with like sampa or barley dough where you make this imprint with your hand. It's called a chambu, which becomes kind of like a ransom. It's like a torma that's like a ransom that is given to these beings, to karmic creditors, and also can work to heal various problems or illness. There's also the healing chud, where people play chud and then everybody sort of lies down. And that can be something that like people who are suffering from insomnia can benefit from the healing chud. It can help to clear away insomnia or like certain types of illnesses. So there's many different varieties and versions of practicing chud. Kungso ta ngaso ditsu shira yomarwa driwa china.
Okay.
Also, so I know there were some questions. So we have a little bit of, I think, like 20 minutes. So do we want to finish with some question and answer?
Yeah, where to start? At the beginning you talked about I don't even know where to start. Parroting.
Oh, a parrot learning Mani mantra?
No, just parroting words. And outside we had talked about the red offering and the white offering and how they represent masculine and feminine, specifically semen, blood, menstrual blood, those types of things. It seems like a lot of this practice has been cleaned up. It is my understanding, and I'm new, is that it is dark and dirty, like her inside the cave that she goes in, and you're dealing with these wounds of yourself, and the human body in and of itself is it has dark aspects of it.
This is going to be really hard to translate.
Yeah.
But keep going.
So it seems like, and I don't know if it's your translation or what she's saying, but it seems like you're feeding it to us like we're children and not talking about...
Oh, that she's feeding it to us.
The translation is
of the text or of her teaching?
Of what we're talking about. It's very clean. Yes, like sanitized, like stories you would tell children, like the story of the hunter and the deer that you had talked about. I just read that story a couple days ago, and the story that I got was significantly darker. It was about this hunter who was constantly killing these animals because that's what he did. And in that process, he comes across another hunter who's actually, I think, if I remember correctly, Tara in disguise. And she's like, I'm a better hunter than you. And
I think that's a different story.
I think it's the same story because it's literally, I've read it several times. But the point of that story was specifically, you brought up the being a vegetarian and those types of things, and it was to teach about love and compassion, which was the plot end of the story that you gave us. But again, it was sanitized the way that it was delivered to us. And I keep seeing that things are being sanitized. Like, do we believe in local gods and nagas because they're angry and the environment's acting in a certain way? Or is this just a visualization? I mean, where are these lines drawn? It's just one question.
So dampo denda. So I think it would be helpful if like you sort of, because there's a lot in what you just said. So if you could like kind of condense it into like what is the crux of the question there, it would be helpful. And then I can sort of like also try to get across the nuances of what you're saying.
Sure.
But yeah.
It seems like...
So is your question, are these sanifies, are we not getting what they actually are? It seems like that's what you're kind of asking.
I feel...
Is she
yes.
telling them in a certain way because
Yes.
she thinks we're children and we can't really
No.
understand?
I don't necessarily think that she
Yeah.
thinks that we're children. I think that perhaps the teachings have been...
For Westerners
reduced
or in general?
In general.
Okay.
Because my understanding is this is a darker practice. It's not, I mean, it was done, what's the history of it? The history of it is it's done in charnel grounds, right? It's done with the people who are the lowest caste people doing these things, the dirty people. For, summarizing like that. But it seems like that aspect's missing. But it was with her when she was in that cave.
Tesa kale kabore pena morangi sam de tsorgiorwa pena tatachi tesa garela o di jam dang ningje dore deni yang nune chininga to mikba chegiore mato dendara wala giorwa pena deni ngato deni ngato pugu yemba nangshin tesa le lapo drawo zogio pa nangshin dendara wo yena gain sena morangi samba la nune chini Ditsu la tesa gare la gogre de napo drawo yang yosare tesa napo pena de tak tang rupa la sopa deni yang de ditsu yang nune deni ngato nune de ditsu yorebe deni yang nune chine pena dutro la doken yena deni kongso nune denda dutro la yang de nyamling chekin yena deni kongso tesa pena yang merik nakpo deni sokpa yopa deni yang tesa gare la gogare denda drawo deni ngato tesa kaka drawo zogi yopa nangshin deni yang kemsa che la song de milarapa gi gombo dorje gi korla loju la yorwa deni mo yang loju di lo yin la song yang be kaka nangshin ne charang la tang denda remendo Deni mogi loju che lo yore deni go de ngopo che ngomba che yore deni ngomba shimba che tu yore deni ngomba shimba de jetsun roma ge trupare deni ngomba shimba de o nga chirang le ngoba che yore rawala yore wa ninga lavian pa che loju kaka che re kaka mare lapsong kim hago ma song deni diwa nune gandhi ba shira ya bo ko
ta chan ninje laya de ngozo de chan ninje sinye de la dodo de ten ya yo mares jatan da ngozo ke pa jimba ta ya de chamba de ninje ngomne sanno ta no ko je jin je go ngozo de mo de lang po je je na kongzho je na palo de gang mara chamba ninje ngom je go ni pa Sanje ke rei mozo ru mozo mrei na po na de zopa res de zangma res rei mozo ru mozo song ya res mrei la chepar jia yo ma res pomo la yenji yo ma res zangma sanje jing go fang to ya de ani kan sanje na ne simji ni u ja lo wen chme res so sanje res sanje je yubu kap se mozo sanje res ngozo decha hedan tomo ngaja chada je ga ngozo decha ro res then de ngozo semde sanje na ngoja lower ke teni nyumo ban decha hedan to je na ngozo drum ro res.
So she said that so she's not sure, when you make this distinction of like dark and as opposed to sanitized, she doesn't know if you're talking about it in the term, like because she's been emphasizing love and compassion as the essence of this practice, which is 100% the case, that there's nothing that isn't coming from love and compassion. And love and compassion is not something, like if we're offering, if it's an offering, right? It's a practice of generosity. So if you're giving something out of generosity, then the act of that giving is going to be love and compassion. Like there's nothing else that it could be actually in its purest form. And so, and then regarding, I think she's responding because you said something about low caste people doing it. And she said, in the practice of Buddhism, there's no such thing as caste. There's no such thing as class, like, or race. It's like whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're male, whether you're female, none of that matters. Let me finish. So she said, all beings have the Buddha nature. We all have the Buddha nature, and that essence is complete purity, the essence of the Buddha nature. And there's nothing that actually isn't the nature of purity. And so what we're practicing in Secret Mantra is the practice of pure view, where we see the innate purity of all things. So that is not a process of sanitizing things. It's actually a process of realizing what things actually are in their inherent nature. And that's what is, what this is all about, is recognizing, purifying the obscurations that obscure that pure true essence from us, because it says, in the scriptures, all beings are actually Buddhas, but they don't realize their true nature. So as we purify the obscurations and realize that intrinsic pure nature, that's what all Dharma practice is doing, and that's what this practice is doing. It's about purification of defilements and recognizing, inherent purity.
I agree with a lot of that. The caste system, Buddhism is not bringing India into the picture. Is, in here even they talk about Bon magicians and so on and so forth. It's hard to, if you have that text in there, to not have it be included in those aspects.
So is the point there that the caste system is a part of Buddhism? Is that what
No. If I thought that the caste system was a part of Buddhism, I probably wouldn't be here, because I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a conversation to be had, but it's hard to do it in this format.
Sure.
Yeah. So I apologize for not having my words together a little bit more. It feels like, especially as women, so often we're required to sanitize ourselves as an aspect.
Now I'm kind of understanding. Yeah.
Okay. And specifically the red offering, we can just keep going back to that. It seems like we're taking aspects of that and cleaning it up. I don't know how to. Do you understand what I'm trying to say a little bit more?
I think so, a little bit more when you bring that into it a little bit. Dini di pena bume regla di ngazo yang dina pena ngazo cha yorwa lo rawa re la cha yore dini sam la yang di gi sam so yorwa pena sokpa dang the sangma ki nijen yorwa teni pena ngacho sam de nune chine de nyamling de tesa sokpa ge rangshin dawore mogi tena ile ngacho laptang or sokpa yang de dukcha yemba malapne pena yene yang de sokpe gi yang rangshin de yang ngacho tesa sangma dawo zoya gi tapshi dawo chegi yorwa yang sokpa de yapo mendu samne yene yang nuni chine de sokpa rang yang gi nyamlen dawo chek yore samgi yosare la de
da der sokpa bme na bena chikpa chikjang res su sem ko long sam lo tang dang nga bme sam ma de na teni sem ke ko long tang dang re nang ba san je ke bo mo le che par mi song yo re teni di che de na bme ke sokpa yun je te ngo to ka sang ha ka nyam ni na ni teni pe cha che shu ke chim bo teni ka re sa 파게 틀레다 마게 가래 차 되니 아니 가래스나 가래라 do take the dudes and I take the nectar.
Nectar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then the chade. Then it's so gone down. Oh, they chade so in the how ma going. Kind of sang hag nyaming a conchi. Danang in the jungle getting board. Yet to Samari. Oh, that and I don't now the Kambana is some no jang. Murder so Namjuk and Mana is some no jang. Then it's some opposite charters.
Wait, Kandila?
Opposite.
Dampo Karela in Kampa.
Medeso, Namjuk and Manashi. Sanga Kanyamni, Dana Lara. Dana just send the Gawayori. Oh, not change on summer, ninja savita. Lega leg on a Jimaris. David Namba Sanje Pak Zushan Joji Maris. Orang Lasa, Zujodo is a do at the Lamados. Penangado Pay Yakan, not Chuchi Jashi Mari. Chuchi Jam machine, merching Chong Duhona, Chucho, the thing is Shidona. Tang a yan don't go on don't talk Mara. Nanyam the Shigri. Chuchi Jashin Kazatik, Mutton don't go mato. Chuchi Jam Michel Kazatik, Mission do the don't go to Kalekabor.
Yini Tiki Jawa Ganda Yaboko.
Didn't Deva Karisina, so can Yamnite, Tapu now at Jangoya. Matableke, Gina, and it ended our child orders. Chonal and Johnson, Chuchi Jam Machine Magic, Magic Shindo the thing I don't go Katon to Yam the sugar. Chuchi Jashinki Jiki Kanzaki Jirama. Tata Namba Sanje Pak Zushan Jota de Maris, Sanje Pecha go Mambo some de Majo Mamboyores, Dina Shabjes and Mosoke Magayachi the Martipo, Lapshire and Maris.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to bring in what you said about the story. So if you still want me to go back to like her story that you were saying, somehow that had an essence for you, that it sounded like her story of when her nose issue and being dirty in the retreat hut. I think that's what you were talking about. You mentioned that before. So like it sounded to me, you were saying something about when she told the story when she was you said in the cave, but in her retreat, and you said something about she was dirty, and that seemed more, maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe that's irrelevant now. Yeah. But maybe I should say what she said. Yeah, first, just so I don't forget. Yeah, I just wanted to say I forgot to tell her that part. So if you want me to go back and tell her that part, I can. But so she said, when with this idea of dirty and clean, so concepts of dirty and clean come from the realm of delusion and duality. So actually the idea that like a woman is any dirtier than a man, from is not the case. From the perspective of duality, when we're looking at like, the defiled aspect of existence, from when we're looking at it from the perspective of delusion, there is the idea of like the impure substances of the body and so forth are equally unclean for man and for woman. There's no difference there. However, with secret mantra, everything is pure. So there's not actually this duality of pure and impure. And so and actually those substances, like you mentioned menstrual blood and which is for men, the seminal essence. So we talk about, the fluids and the drop of the father and the fluid of the mother. These are like the most sacred substances in secret mantra. And that's with pure view. If we're seeing those substances from the perspective of defilement and like from the perspective of like ordinariness with kind of an impure view, then they're just ordinary, impure, samsaric substances. But pure view is something that takes time and it takes training, and then you can really actually see the innate purity of all phenomena. And that is what she is speaking to, that it all has to do with motivation. And once the mind becomes sufficiently purified, you can see the innate purity of all phenomena. And it isn't seen with that kind of dualistic mindset of like in the same way of clean and dirty. But she said it takes somebody who can practice pure view to really be able to, it isn't, she said, for instance, and that's why, if you have, like there are people who know how to swim and then people who don't know how to swim. But if somebody who doesn't know how to swim is drowning in the water and another person who doesn't know how to swim jumps into the water and tries to save that person, they can't. So it takes, somebody who knows how to swim to be able to pull that person out of the water. So she said, chiche kare jito na don me tu de la kare. Oh, de is chu pala. Yeah. Yeah.
That might be the nose thing. You just mentioned the analogy of swimming, and you need somebody or drowning, and somebody needs to come in and save you. My understanding of Buddhism is that's not how that works, which goes back to her in her cave with her nose all icky, and then her guru came and spit on her nose and wiped it, and then it healed. So the question is, was it the guru that healed it, or was it her that healed it? Because I believe it was her that healed it, not her guru. Because from my understanding of Buddhism, we save ourselves.
Dini chigi yang data pena chu nangla chungwa gi me chu gyat ma shaken, dini chu gyat ma shaken rokpa che tugyo mare sung yimba. Yini morangi tawala sanje chu dinda tawo mare kain sina mi shimba ngatso yang de nune chine de tarba la titu gyo marwa teni ngatso yang ropa cheke nune chine yo mare ngatso lara le yore deni penachi ki loju de penachi nawe kala deni garchen rumbache pep yorwa deni kong chema lo deni chirang dra yorwa deni chirang dra ya gi jumsen de lame gi jinla rebe yang na chirang dra ya gi jumsen cha yorebe morangi tawala chirang rang la dra yore kayen sena mi chek sanje gi chunang la mi chek mi shimbala yang nuni chine mi soso yore de mi shimba ngatso yang le dak tu gyo mare dra wasam yore
Morajer dimbarita nal maria te susoke lama la yichi ta tepa lama china choso nyamni ni tan jen timder chane any chagres.
She said, you're right. When it comes to, regarding what happened, for instance, with the example of when her nose was, she had the problem with her nose and Rinpoche healed her, that actually was not just Rinpoche healing her. The main cause of that was her own devotion, faith and devotion to Rinpoche. So that became the cause when these, everything is interdependent. So, there's the blessings of the Lama, but there's the very necessary hook of devotion, or the cause, the condition of devotion for the disciple, for the student, and then the conditions that those coming together are what enable something like that miraculous healing to take place. So yes, Rinpoche possesses tremendous blessing, but also it was largely her own mind that enabled that to happen and her own practice. You're right.
She possesses the same innate awesomeness that he has. Yeah. Is what I'm getting at.
Pena kong yang sanje yena charang yang gingo sanje re. Yeah. Dendarebe. Yes.
Kong sanje re.
I mean, I didn't say awesomeness. I said Buddha nature. Yeah.
That's
right. She said, the Buddha is the Buddha. There are some beings who are closer to that enlightened nature, but you're all Buddhas too. So the difference is we are Buddhas, but we don't know that essence in ourselves because we have that is obscured from us because of the temporary obscuration. So we cannot see, we cannot access our enlightened nature because of the veil of obscurations.
got rid of the veils by spending 20 years in a Chinese prison and turning that into a practice. No, that was Garchen Rinpoche.
Dene Rinpoche yang lo nishu tsong kang nang la shu ne. Dene de yang dripa jang tu yore. Dene yang she said yes, that's right.
Drupon majana ta tata ngoso nyamne che tata jimba luk jimba tangto je changman soso ke tonda ke drupa taya ke chidere madana tin ngoso perna tolo jin tolo de yoren po marjena tikto go chituni sam chogo do tolo de nyonyo je ma chapa mina kama che ni kchoro da so changma.
So she said, you know, yeah, we without doing the work to purify the obscurations, it doesn't do any good to be like, oh, we're all Buddhas. We remain in delusion. So in order to realize, to awaken to our true nature, we have to do the work. We have to purify our obscurations. And so it's like, that's what actually we're doing. That's what this is, the Chod practice. You know, we are purifying our obscurations. We're gathering the accumulations. We're getting closer to recognizing that intrinsic nature through the practice. And, you know, as she said, it's like clothing. If you have clothing that's stained, you know, there's clothing that's stained to different degrees. So if there's clothing that has like a light stain, you know, you can throw it in the washing machine for an hour or so and it comes out. You know, if you have some deeper some stains that are more deeply set, you have to spend more time, you know, working on cleaning those stains to get them out of the clothing. So the essence is the same, the degree of defilement is different. The degree of, maybe defilement's not a great word. I think that kind of goes to what you were pointing out. The degree of obscuration is what is different. So this is now, yeah, we've reached our break time. So, yeah, page.
Okay.
So we'll do page 26 at the bottom of page. Okay. By the power of the merit I have accumulated, the power of the merit and samsara and nirvana and the 3 times, and by the power of the primordial merit of Buddha nature, by all this may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the perfect enlightenment state of Buddhahood. By the merit I have accumulated, may I overcome all erroneous attitudes and reach the omniscient state. May all sentient beings who are suffering in the waves of birth, old age, illness, and death be freed from the ocean of samsara. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.
Thank you, Trashidele.
Oh yeah, we're a little over. Thank you, Shiva.